Her true story from California. They tried to steal her home, so she reclaimed it with one document. I was folding my grandson's little blue pajamas when I heard the garage door close. That was the first thing. The sound was wrong. Too fast, too quiet. Usually when my daughter Sarah came over, she would let the door hum all the way up. Then she would honk the horn twice because she knew I liked that little signal. But this time, the door went up and down in maybe 4 seconds, and then I heard her keys hit the kitchen counter, and her voice was low and fast. She was on the phone. She didn't know I was in the laundry room off the hallway. The door was cracked open maybe 3 inches. I could see the edge of the refrigerator and the fruit bowl and her back. She was wearing that black sweater I gave her for Christmas, the expensive one from Nordstrom. I remembered because I had saved for 3 months to buy that sweater. My Social Security check only goes so far, but she is my daughter, and I wanted her to have something nice. She said into the phone, "I am here now. Just give me 10 minutes. Then she laughed. Not a real laugh, a hard laugh. She said, "He has no idea. The will is in the safe in the office. The combination is still her birthday. Can you believe that? She never changes it." Then she said, "I love you too," and she hung up. I stood there with the little blue pajamas in my hands. My hands started to shake, not because I understood everything yet, because I understood something. The way she said her birthday, she meant my birthday, July 14th, the same combination I have used since 1987, when your father and I bought that safe from Sears. The same safe that holds my will. The same safe that holds the deed to this house. The same safe that holds the life insurance policies. I stood there, and I felt my chest get tight, the way it does before a storm, that heavy pressure before the sky breaks open. Her name is Sarah. She is my oldest. She is 42 years old. She has 2 children, a boy named Leo, who is 7, and a girl named Mia, who is 4. She has a husband named Mark, who sells medical equipment or something. I have never quite understood what he does, but he drives a black Mercedes and he has a summer tan in February. I have never liked Mark. I have never said that out loud until now, but I have never liked him. There is something behind his eyes when he looks at me, like he is calculating something, like he is adding up numbers in his head, the square footage of my house, the value of my paid-off mortgage, the cost of my furniture, my grandmother's dining table that seats 12, my china cabinet, my wedding ring that has a 1-carat diamond your father saved 2 years to buy. My husband Robert died 4 years ago. Lung cancer. He never smoked a day in his life. That was the cruelty of it. The healthiest man I knew. He ran 5 miles every morning until he was 68. He ate oatmeal with blueberries. He never drank more than 2 beers at a barbecue. And then one day he coughed into a napkin and there was blood. 6 months later, he was gone. I held his hand in the hospice center. The room smelled like rubbing alcohol and wilted flowers. His skin was yellow and thin. He weighed maybe 120 pounds. He used to be 185 pounds of muscle. He was a carpenter. He built the deck in the backyard. He built the fence that still stands. He built the shelves in the garage where I keep my Christmas decorations. And I watched him disappear, piece by piece, organ by organ, until there was nothing left but a hand that I held and a breath that stopped. After he died, I thought I would die too. Not from sickness, from loneliness. The silence in this house was a living thing. It sat in the chairs. It lay on the bed. It stood in the kitchen where Robert used to make his morning coffee. I would wake up at 3 in the morning and walk to the living room and sit on the couch and just listen to the silence. It was heavy. It was thick. It was the weight of 43 years of marriage ending in a hospice bed. Sarah was wonderful at first. She came over every day. She brought groceries. She cooked dinners. She helped me sort through Robert's things. His flannel shirts, his work boots, his fishing rods that he never used because he was always working. She held me when I cried. She said, "Mom, you are not alone. You have me. You have the kids. We are going to take care of you." And I believed her. I believed her the way you believe the sun will rise. Because she was my daughter. Because I changed her diapers. I drove her to soccer practice. I stayed up all night when she had the flu. I paid for her college. I co-signed her first apartment.
I gave her $5,000 for her wedding when I did not have $5,000 to give. I put it on a credit card and paid it off over 2 years. She never knew that. She never asked. Mark started coming with her after a few months. At first, I thought it was sweet. He would carry the heavy bags. He would fix the leaky faucet in the guest bathroom. He would mow the lawn when I could not find anyone to do it. But then he started asking questions. Innocent questions at first. Mom, how much is the property tax on this place? Mom, what is the interest rate on your reverse mortgage? Mom, did Robert have a retirement account besides the pension? Mom, have you thought about what happens to the house when you pass away? I answered him because I thought he was being helpful. I thought he was being a son-in-law who cared. I see now that he was a real estate agent in a black Mercedes doing market research on a widow. The thing about being a widow is that people see you differently. You become a noun instead of a person. You become a problem to be solved, a house to be sold, an asset to be managed, a body to be moved into a facility so that the real life can continue without you. I started noticing how Mark would look at my house, not like a home, like a listing, like a number on a spreadsheet. He would stand in the backyard and tilt his head, and I could almost see him calculating. New kitchen would add $50,000. New bathrooms would add $30,000. Pop the popcorn ceiling and paint everything gray and call it a modern farmhouse. List it for $800 and walk away with $7 after commissions and fees. I tried to talk to Sarah about it one night. We were washing dishes. Leo and Mia were watching cartoons in the living room. I said, "Sarah, honey, I feel like Mark is a little too interested in my finances." She stopped scrubbing a pot. She looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. It was not anger. It was not confusion. It was something colder. She said, "Mom, Mark is just trying to help. He is worried about you. We are all worried about you. You live alone in this big house. What happens if you fall? What happens if you have a stroke? What happens if you forget to turn off the stove? We are just trying to plan for the future." I said, "I am 69 years old. I am not dead yet." She laughed, but it was not a nice laugh. She said, "No one said you were dead, Mom." And then she went back to scrubbing the pot, and we did not talk about it again. That was 2 years ago. I am 71 now. I still live alone in this house. I still mow the lawn myself because I cannot afford a landscaper. I still climb on a ladder to clean the gutters because no one else will do it. I still cook dinner for one and eat it at the kitchen counter because the dining table is too big and too sad. I have a cat now, a gray tabby I found at the shelter. I named him Robert. He sleeps on the pillow next to me. He is the only living thing that comes home to me every night. After that night in the laundry room, I did not confront Sarah. I did not run out and scream, "What did you mean about the will?" I just folded the little blue pajamas and put them in the drawer and walked into the kitchen and smiled. I asked her if she wanted coffee. She said yes. She said, "Mom, can I use your office printer for something?" I said, "Of course, honey." And I watched her walk down the hall to the office that has the safe in the closet, the safe with the combination of my birthday. I watched her close the door. I heard the soft beep of the safe keypad. I heard the thud of the heavy door opening. I stood in the kitchen and I poured 2 cups of coffee, and I added cream to hers just the way she likes it, and I waited. When she came back, she was holding a piece of paper. She folded it in half and put it in her purse. She smiled at me. She said, "Mom, you are the best," and she kissed my cheek. Her lips were cold. I do not know why I remember that, but they were cold, like she had already left the room before her body followed. I did not sleep that night. I lay in bed with Robert the cat purring on my chest, and I thought about every moment of my life that led to this house. I grew up in Indiana, a small town with one stoplight and a church on every corner. My mother was a nurse. My father was a mechanic. They worked their fingers to the bone so that I could go to community college and get a degree in elementary education. I met Robert at a church picnic. He was wearing a plaid shirt, and he was grilling hamburgers, and he burned every single one, but he laughed about it, and that laugh was the first thing I loved about him. We got married 6 months later. We moved to California because Robert got a job with a construction company. We had no family here, no friends, just each other and a U-Haul truck and $3,000. We bought this house in 1984, the year Sarah was born. I was pregnant with her when we signed the papers. My feet were swollen. I could barely walk up the steps. But I cried when the realtor handed us the keys. Not because I was sad, because I could not believe that a girl from Indiana with a community college degree and a carpenter husband could own a home in California. A real home, with a yard, with a lemon tree in the backyard, with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms and a fireplace that actually worked. We paid $112,000 for this house. We paid off the mortgage in 22 years. We made every payment on time, even when Robert got laid off during the recession.
Even when I worked 2 jobs teaching and waitressing at night. Even when Sarah needed braces and we had to choose between her teeth and a new roof. We chose her teeth. We always chose her. That is what makes this so hard. I chose her every time, and now she is choosing a piece of paper over me. The next morning, I called my friend Diane. Diane is 73. She lives 3 streets over. Her husband died 5 years ago. Her children live in Arizona, and they call her once a week on Sunday afternoons. Diane is the only person I know who understands what it feels like to be a ghost in your own family. I told her what I heard, what I saw, the safe, the will, the cold kiss. Diane was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Jean, you need to call a lawyer." I said, "I do not have money for a lawyer." She said, "You have a house, and that is exactly what they want." So I called a lawyer. His name was Mr. Henderson. His office was in a strip mall between a pizza place and a nail salon. The carpet was brown and worn. The chairs were plastic. But he was an older man with kind eyes, and he listened to me without checking his phone once. I told him everything: the will, the safe, Sarah and Mark, the questions about the house, the printer, the folded paper in her purse. Mr. Henderson leaned back in his chair, and he rubbed his chin, and he said, "Mrs. Costello, I am going to ask you a hard question. Are you sure you want to know the answer?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Then we need to see what is in that safe." "What is in that will? What they took from your office?" I told him the combination. July 14th, my birthday. He wrote it down. He said I will get a court order to have a representative open the safe and inventory the contents. "But Mrs. Costello, this will take time, and it will cost money." I said, "How much?" He said $5,000 for a retainer. I almost laughed. I almost cried. I had $1,200 in my checking account. My Social Security check is $1,400 a month. My property tax is $6,000 a year. I do not have $5,000 for anything. I have $5,000 for emergencies. And this felt like the biggest emergency of my life. I sold my mother's china. I sold it to a woman on Facebook Marketplace for $800. I sold Robert's tools, his table saw, his circular saw, his drill press, all the things he touched with his hands, all the things he cleaned and oiled and loved. I sold them to a young man who came to the garage with a truck. He asked me if I knew what any of the stuff was worth. I said no. He said, "I will give you $2,000 cash." I said, "Take it all." I sold my wedding ring. I took it to a jeweler in the mall. A girl with purple hair looked at it through a magnifying glass and said, "The diamond is nice, but the setting is old. I can give you $1,200. I said yes. I did not cry until I got to the car, and then I cried for an hour. I raised $5,000. I gave it to Mr. Henderson. He filed the court order, and then I waited. While I was waiting, I watched my daughter change. She used to call me every morning on her drive to work, just to say hi, just to tell me about the kids. Now she called once a week, maybe, and the calls were short. She asked the same questions. Have you thought about downsizing? Have you thought about a retirement community? Have you thought about selling the house and moving closer to us? I said no. She said, "Mom, you are being stubborn." I said, "Maybe I am." She said, "We are just trying to help." I said, "I do not need help. I need my daughter." She stopped calling after that. 3 weeks later, Mr. Henderson called me. He said the court appointed a representative to open the safe. The will was gone. The deed to the house was still there, but the will was not. He said someone had removed the original will from the safe, the only copy, the will that left everything to Sarah, the will that named her the executor of my estate, the will that said when I die, this house goes to her and her children. That will was gone, vanished.
taken by someone who knew the combination, someone who knew my birthday, someone who walked into my office and opened my safe and stole the most important document of my life. Mr. Henderson said the good news is that without a valid will, the state will handle your estate according to intestacy laws. That means your assets will be divided among your surviving children. You have 2 children.
Sarah and your son Michael, who lives in Oregon. Michael is 40. He is a nurse. He has 3 children. He calls me every Sunday. He sends me flowers on my birthday. He has never asked me about my house or my money or my will. Mr. Henderson said under intestacy laws, Michael would get half of everything, and Sarah would get half. But Mark and Sarah did not want half. They wanted all of it. That is why they took the will. That is why they wanted me to believe that I had no say. That is why they wanted me to feel confused and scared and alone. Mr. Henderson said there is something else. He said the representative also found a document in the safe that you did not mention, a quitclaim deed, signed by you, dated 3 months ago, transferring ownership of the house to Sarah and Mark for the sum of $1. I said I never signed that. He said, I know. The signature is a forgery. But Mrs. Costello, they tried to record this deed with the county. If it had been recorded, Mark and Sarah would legally own your house. They could evict you. They could sell it. They could do whatever they wanted. The only reason it did not go through is because the notary stamp was expired. Someone got sloppy. Someone was in a hurry. They thought no one would check. I put the phone down. I walked to the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror. My hair is gray now. I stopped dyeing it after Robert died. My face is lined. My hands are spotted. My eyes are the same blue they have always been, but they look different now. Older. Tired. Like they have seen too much. I stared at myself and I thought about the forgery. Someone had signed my name. Someone had pretended to be me. Someone had sat at a table with a notary and smiled and said, yes, I am Jean Costello, and yes, I want to give my house to my daughter for $1. And that someone was either my daughter or her husband, or both. I do not know which one is worse. Mr. Henderson filed a police report. He filed a civil lawsuit. He sent a cease and desist letter to Sarah and Mark. And then the war began. Sarah showed up at my door at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. She was crying. Real tears or fake tears, I could not tell anymore. She said, Mom, how could you do this to me? How could you accuse us of stealing from you? We love you. We were trying to protect you. The quitclaim deed was your idea. You said you wanted to make sure the house stayed in the family. You said you were worried about medical bills. You said you wanted to simplify things. I said, I never said any of those things. She said, yes, you did, Mom. You just do not remember. You are getting older. Your memory is not what it used to be. Maybe we need to talk to a doctor about you. That was the moment I understood the whole plan. It was never just about the house. It was about making me doubt myself, making me feel crazy, making me feel old and useless and confused, so that I would just give up and let them take everything. They were not just stealing my house. They were stealing my mind. They were rewriting my history. They were telling me that I said things I never said and did things I never did. That is the cruelest kind of betrayal. Not the theft of a document, the theft of your own reality. I told her to leave. She said, Mom, please. I said, leave now. She said, you are going to regret this. I said, I already regret you. And I closed the door. I did not sleep for 3 days. I lay in bed and I played every conversation over and over in my head. Every dinner, every holiday, every time Sarah sat next to me on the couch and held my hand and told me she loved me. Was any of it real? Was she waiting for Robert to die? Was she counting the days until she could cash in? Did she look at me across the table on Thanksgiving and see a future check? Did she kiss my cheek goodnight and dream about granite countertops and open floor plans? I called Michael. I told him everything. He was quiet on the phone. Then he said, Mom, I am coming home. I said, you do not have to do that. He said, I am coming home tomorrow. And he hung up.
Michael arrived on a Wednesday. He drove from Oregon, 12 hours in a Honda Civic with 3 kids in the back seat. His wife Jenna stayed home because someone had to work. He walked into the house and he hugged me and he did not let go for a long time. I felt his chest shake.
He was crying. My son, my boy, the one who used to climb the lemon tree and scrape his knees and come running to me with tears on his face. Now he is 6 feet tall. He has a beard. He has a wife and children and a mortgage and a life that does not include me, except on Sundays. But he drove 12 hours because his sister tried to destroy his mother. He said, "Mom, we are going to fight this." I said, "I do not have any money left for fighting." He said, "I do. I have savings. I will sell my car if I have to." You are not losing this house. You are not losing your mind. And you are not losing me. I cried then, not because I was sad, because I was not alone. The lawsuit dragged on for 8 months. 8 months of depositions and affidavits and court dates and legal fees that ate through Michael's savings like termites. 8 months of not knowing if I would wake up in my own bedroom or a rented apartment somewhere far away. 8 months of Sarah and Mark denying everything. They hired a lawyer, a young woman with sharp glasses and a sharp suit, who tried to make me look senile on the witness stand. She asked me if I remembered what day it was. I said Thursday. She asked me who the president was. I said Joe Biden. She asked me what year I graduated from college. I said 1972. She asked me what I had for breakfast. I said oatmeal. She asked me if I had ever been diagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer's. I said no. She asked me if I had ever forgotten to take my medication. I said I do not take any medication. She looked at the judge and said, "Your Honor, the defense would like to request a psychiatric evaluation of the plaintiff." The judge said, "Denied." Mr. Henderson was good. He was old and tired and his suit did not fit well, but he knew the law. He brought in a forensic document examiner who testified that my signature on the quitclaim deed was a forgery. He brought in a notary who testified that her stamp was expired on the date the deed was supposedly signed. He brought in my phone records to show that I never called any real estate agent or any title company or any lawyer to discuss transferring my house. And then he put Sarah on the stand. She looked beautiful. She always looks beautiful. She has my eyes and Robert's jaw and a smile that could sell anything. She wore a white blouse and pearl earrings. She looked like a daughter you would be proud of. And then she started talking. She said her mother had been forgetful for years. She said her mother had talked about giving her the house many times. She said her mother had signed the quitclaim deed willingly in the kitchen of this very house. She said Mark was there as a witness. She said she had no idea how the notary stamp got expired. She said it must have been a mistake. She said she loved her mother and she would never hurt her. And then she cried. Real tears this time. I know because I have seen her cry 1,000 times since she was a baby. These were real. The judge asked her one question. He said, "Miss Costello, if your mother willingly signed the quitclaim deed, why did you remove the original will from her safe without telling her?" Sarah froze. Her mouth opened, her mouth closed. She looked at her lawyer. Her lawyer looked at her shoes. The judge said, "I will repeat the question. Why did you remove the original will from your mother's safe without telling her?" Sarah said, "I do not know what you are talking about." The judge said, "The court-appointed representative testified that the will was missing from the safe. Your mother testified that she did not remove it. Your brother testified that he never had access to the safe. Your husband declined to testify under the Fifth Amendment. So I will ask you one more time. Why did you remove the will?" Sarah said, "I do not remember." The judge said, "I am going to give you 5 minutes to remember," and he called a recess. During the recess, I sat in the hallway on a wooden bench. Michael sat next to me. His hand was on my knee. The courthouse smelled like floor wax and old paper. I looked at the door of the courtroom, and I thought about the day Sarah was born, the way the nurse put her in my arms and I counted her fingers and her toes, and I promised her a life better than mine. I promised her everything. I kept that promise for 42 years, and now she was sitting behind a closed door, trying to remember why she stole from me. When the judge came back, Sarah had a new story. She said she removed the will because she wanted to make a copy. She said she was worried about the will getting lost or damaged in the safe. She said she took it to a copy shop, but she must have left it there. She said she had been meaning to go back and look for it, but she forgot. She said she was sorry. The judge looked at her for a long time. Then he looked at me. Then he looked at the stack of documents on his desk. He said, "I am ruling in favor of the plaintiff. The quitclaim deed is void. The will is presumed destroyed by the defendant. The original will is hereby reinstated based on the copy retained by the plaintiff's attorney. The house belongs to Jean Costello. The defendant is ordered to pay the plaintiff's legal fees in the amount of $43,000, and I am referring this case to the district attorney's office for possible criminal charges of forgery and elder financial abuse." Sarah screamed. Not a word, just a sound. A high sound, like an animal caught in a trap. Mark stood up and walked out of the courtroom without looking at anyone. Sarah's lawyer packed her briefcase and left without saying goodbye. And Sarah sat there at the defense table with her pearl earrings and her white blouse and her real tears. And she looked at me like I was a stranger, like she had never seen me before, like I was not the woman who held her hand when she got her first shot, who wiped her nose when she had a cold, who stayed up all night when she had a fever, who drove her to college and cried the whole way home. I walked over to her. Michael said, "Mom, do not." I said, "It is okay." I stood in front of her. She looked up at me. Her mascara was running. Her nose was red. She looked like a little girl again, and I wanted to hold her. I wanted to wrap my arms around her and tell her it was okay, that I forgave her, that we could go home and make coffee and pretend none of this happened. But I did not. I could not. Because pretending is what got me here. Pretending is what made me ignore the locked office door and the whispered phone calls and the questions about my property tax. Pretending is what almost cost me my house. I said, "Sarah, I love you, but I do not know who you are anymore." She said nothing. She just stared at me. And then she stood up and walked out of the courtroom, and I have not seen her since. That was 18 months ago. The criminal case is still pending. The district attorney says it could take another year. Mark took the kids and moved into an apartment across town. Sarah lives alone now in the house they used to share. I know this because my neighbor saw her at the grocery store. She looked thin. She looked tired. She was buying frozen dinners for one. Michael and Jenna moved to California. They bought a house 20 minutes away. I see my grandchildren every week. Leo is 9 now. He lost 2 front teeth. He plays soccer on Saturdays. Mia is 6. She has braids. She calls me every night to say goodnight. They do not ask about their mother. I do not know what Michael has told them. I do not ask. Robert the cat still sleeps on my pillow. The lemon tree still grows in the backyard. The deck that Robert built still holds my weight when I drink my morning coffee. The safe is still in the office closet. I changed the combination. It is no longer my birthday. It is the day Robert and I closed on this house, November 9th, 1984. A day when everything was possible. A day when I believed that love was enough. I still fold laundry. I still make coffee. I still sit in the kitchen and listen to the silence. But the silence is different now. It is not the weight of grief. It is the weight of knowing. Knowing that the people you love most in the world can look you in the eye and lie. Knowing that blood does not protect you from greed. Knowing that a daughter can steal from her mother and sleep peacefully in her bed that same night. Knowing that the only person you can really trust is yourself, and maybe a cat named after a dead man. If you are listening to this and you are old like me, do not be naive. Do not think that your children would never hurt you. Do not think that your son-in-law is just being helpful. Do not think that the locked office door is nothing. Open the door. Look inside. Ask the hard questions. Change the combination. Make copies of everything. Trust the person who makes you feel safe, not the person who shares your DNA, because DNA does not love you. DNA does not hold your hand when you are dying. DNA does not drive 12 hours to save your house. People do, or they do not, and some of them do both. Some of them love you and steal from you in the same breath. Some of them kiss your cheek and forge your signature. Some of them call you mom and count the days until you are gone. I still love her. That is the worst part. I still love my daughter. I still remember the way she laughed as a baby, the way she said mama for the first time, the way she held my hand on the first day of kindergarten and squeezed it 3 times, because that was our secret code for I love you. I still love her, and I still wait for the phone to ring.
I still hope that one day she will call and say, "Mom, I am sorry." I still hope that she will walk through the door with her kids and her chaos and her loud laugh. I still hope that we can sit at the kitchen table and drink coffee and pretend. But hope is a dangerous thing at 71. Hope is what makes you leave the will in the safe. Hope is what makes you trust the wrong people. Hope is what makes you believe that love conquers greed. It does not. Love and greed can live in the same heart. I know, because they live in mine. I love my daughter, and I grieve her, and I am angry at her, and I would still give her a kidney if she needed one. That is the sickness of motherhood. That is the curse of being a mother. You cannot stop. You cannot close the door all the way. You always leave it cracked.
You always listen for footsteps. You always hope that the person who hurt you will come back and say, "Please forgive me," and mean it. Maybe she will. Maybe she will not. But tonight I am going to make a pot of coffee. I am going to sit on the deck that Robert built. I am going to watch the sunset over the fence that Robert built. I am going to hold Robert the cat in my lap. And I am going to remember that I won. I kept my house. I kept my dignity. I kept my son. I kept my grandchildren. And I kept the truth. Sarah and Mark tried to take everything from me, and in the end, all they took was my trust. But trust is not a house. Trust is not a deed. Trust is not a retirement account. Trust is just a feeling, and feelings heal, or they do not. But either way, you keep going. You keep folding laundry. You keep making coffee. You keep living in the house you paid for with your own blood and tears, and 43 years of a marriage that ended too soon. You keep living because the only thing worse than being betrayed is letting the betrayal be the last chapter of your story. And I am not done yet.